Quebec is not just another Canadian province. It is the largest province in Canada by area, the country's second most populous province, and the only province where French is the majority language. That combination gives Quebec a place in Canada that is both central and distinct. It stretches across a vast part of eastern and central Canada, from dense cities and agricultural regions in the south to enormous northern landscapes shaped by forests, rivers, hydroelectric reservoirs, and Arctic coastlines. Around 8 million people live there, most of them in the southern corridor along the St. Lawrence River, where Quebec's oldest cities, biggest industries, and strongest cultural institutions developed. To understand Quebec, you have to see it as a province, a society, and a historical community all at once. Geographically, Quebec's position helps explain its importance. It borders Ontario to the west, Newfoundland and Labrador to the northeast, New Brunswick to the southeast, and the United States to the south. It also has a coastal border with Nunavut, linking it to northern waters. This gives Quebec a rare mix of identities. It is Atlantic-facing, continental, northern, and deeply connected to the St. Lawrence River. The St. Lawrence has been especially important because it functioned as a gateway into the interior of North America. Long before modern highways and railways, this waterway connected settlements, trade routes, and colonial ambitions. Quebec's major cities, including Montreal and Quebec City, grew from that river-based geography, turning location into political and economic power. Quebec's distinct identity begins with language. It is home to Québécois French, a variety of French shaped by centuries of life in North America. While French is spoken in other parts of Canada, Quebec is the only province where Francophones form the majority. This matters because language is not only a tool for communication, it carries memory, education, law, media, family life, humor, politics, and culture. In Quebec, French became the foundation of a collective identity that survived under changing empires and governments. The province's language laws and cultural institutions are partly responses to a central question: how does a French-speaking society maintain itself on a continent where English is dominant? From 1534 until 1763, the area that is now Quebec was at the heart of the French colony of Canada, the most developed colony within New France. French settlers established towns, religious institutions, farms, and trading networks, especially along the St. Lawrence. Quebec City became a strategic colonial capital, while Montreal developed as a commercial and missionary center farther upriver. This French colonial period left a deep imprint on place names, land patterns, religion, language, and social life. Even after French imperial control ended, the population did not simply disappear or become culturally absorbed. Instead, French-speaking communities remained rooted in the territory, creating the long-term foundation for modern Quebec society. The turning point came after the 7 Years' War. In 1763, France ceded Canada to Britain, and Quebec entered a new political era. It first became the province of Quebec, then Lower Canada, and later part of the province of Canada. These names were not just administrative labels, each represented a changing attempt to govern a population that was largely French-speaking and Catholic within a British imperial framework. British rule introduced new political structures, new commercial elites, and English-speaking migration, but it also had to accommodate the realities of the existing population. The result was not a simple replacement of French institutions with British ones, but a complicated negotiation between languages, laws, religions, and political expectations. In the 19th century, political tension grew in Lower Canada. Many French-speaking reformers wanted more responsible government and greater control over local affairs. The Lower Canada Rebellion of 1837 and 1838 emerged from these frustrations, although it was part of a wider crisis in British North America. Afterward, Lower Canada was merged with Upper Canada into the Province of Canada. Eventually, in 1867, Quebec entered Canadian Confederation alongside Ontario, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. Confederation created a federal system, meaning powers were divided between the national government and the provinces. For Quebec, Provincial autonomy was especially significant because it offered a political space where French language, civil law, education, and culture could be protected and developed. For much of Quebec's history after Confederation, the Catholic Church played a major role in social and cultural life. It influenced education, healthcare, charity, morality, and community identity. In many towns and neighborhoods, parish life organized more than religion. It helped shape social networks and public values. This period is often remembered as a time when French-Canadian identity was closely connected to Catholicism, rural traditions, and cultural survival. But by the mid-20th century, many Quebecers began to see church dominance and older institutions as obstacles to modernization. The question became whether Quebec could move from a society focused on survival to one focused on state-led development, secular education, and economic control. That transformation is known as the Quiet Revolution. Beginning in the 1960s and continuing through the following decades, Quebec underwent rapid social, political, and cultural change. The provincial government expanded its role in education, healthcare, economic planning, and public institutions. A new idea of l'État québécois, or the Quebec Public Authority, became central. The state was increasingly seen as the main instrument through which French-speaking Quebecers could modernize society and gain control over their future. This period also helped shift identity from French-Canadian, a term tied to a wider ethnic and religious past, toward Québécois, a more territorial and political identity rooted in Quebec itself. Quebec's politics operate within Canada's constitutional monarchy and Westminster parliamentary system. The Premier of Quebec is the head of government, leading the provincial executive and depending on the confidence of the elected legislature. But Quebec politics are also shaped by a debate that is less prominent elsewhere in Canada, the question of independence. For decades, many Quebecers have argued that Quebec is a distinct nation and should become a sovereign country. Others support remaining in Canada while defending strong provincial autonomy and recognition of Quebec's uniqueness. These debates have influenced elections, referendums, language policy, constitutional negotiations, and Quebec's relationship with the rest of the country. One of Quebec's most distinctive features is its legal and statutory framework. Three documents are especially important: the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, the Charter of the French Language, and the Civil Code of Quebec. Together, they help define rights, language policy, and private law. Unlike the rest of Canada, which uses common law for most legal matters, Quebec has a mixed legal system. Public law follows common law traditions, reflecting British and Canadian institutions, while private law is based on civil law, inherited from French legal traditions and organized through the Civil Code. This makes Quebec legally distinctive, not just culturally distinctive. The Charter of the French Language is central to understanding modern Quebec. It reflects the belief that French needs active protection to remain the common public language in a North American environment dominated by English. Language policy affects education, business, signage, government services, and workplace life. Supporters see it as essential for preserving Quebec's identity and ensuring that newcomers can integrate into a French-speaking society. Critics sometimes argue about limits, rights, or the impact on minority communities. But regardless of political position, the Charter shows how Quebec treats language as a public institution, not merely a private choice. In Quebec, French is tied to the future of the society itself. Quebec's economy is broad and modern. Like many advanced economies, it is supported mainly by a large service sector, but it also has important industries. Aeronautics is a major export strength, especially around Montreal, where aerospace expertise, manufacturing, engineering, and research are concentrated. Hydroelectricity is another defining sector, powered by Quebec's vast rivers and northern geography. Mining, pharmaceuticals, aluminum, wood, and paper also contribute to exports. This mix reflects the province's geography and history, natural resources from huge territories, manufacturing and innovation in urban centers, and public infrastructure developed over decades. Quebec's economy is not based on one single product, It combines energy, industry, knowledge, and services. Quebec is also one of Canada's most recognizable cultural engines. It is famous for maple syrup, but its cultural influence goes far beyond food. Quebec produces literature, music, films, television, comedy, festivals, and a distinctive public life shaped by French language and local creativity. Comedy has a particularly strong place in Quebec popular culture, while ice hockey remains one of the province's major sporting passions and a major part of Canadian identity. What makes Quebec stand out is the scale of its cultural ecosystem. It has its own stars, media networks, debates, references, and traditions. Quebec is inside Canada, but it also has a cultural world that often feels complete in itself. So Quebec can be understood as a province with the weight of a historical society. Its geography made it a gateway into North America. Its French colonial roots created a language community that endured under British rule and within Canadian Confederation. Its quiet revolution modernized institutions and strengthened the role of the provincial state. Its legal system, language charter, and political debates reflect a continuing effort to protect and define a distinct identity. And its economy and culture make it one of the most influential parts of Canada. Quebec's story is ultimately about continuity and change, a French-speaking society adapting to modern North America while insisting that its difference matters. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.